Hi, welcome to the State of Our Workforce. Where are we now? Where we go beyond the Department of Labor jobs numbers and explore issues at the forefront of workforce development. I'm Amanda Cage, CEO of the National Fund for Workforce Solutions, and we're excited to be streaming on LinkedIn again this month. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. Today I have Rob Hope, Director of ReWork the Bay. Welcome, Rob.
Thanks, Amanda. Great to be here.
I'm really excited to be talking to you today. I just came back from your hometown in San Francisco and Oakland, so it's nice to be talking to you today.
Nice.
Part of the reason we have this conversation is because we know that the numbers that are put out don't explain this whole story about what's happening to workers. If we listen to the numbers, what we hear right now is that there's really low unemployment, an incredibly tight labor market, that workers have a lot of bargaining power, but we know that that's not the whole story. Can you talk a little bit about what this looks like in your area?
Yeah, so we agree. I mean, it doesn't tell the whole story. Those jobs numbers that are very simplified just don't really give policymakers or, we work in philanthropy, clear indicators of what the right policy solutions are to make sure that working families are able to thrive as we recover from this recession.
I know one of the pieces of information that you all talk about is that not all job creation is good job creation. And I know right now one of the top line numbers we hear all the time is that there's more workers than there are jobs, about 5 million more jobs than there are workers. Can you talk about what your perspective is on job creation?
Yeah, and to me, that's a great example of how those high-level job numbers don't tell us a lot, especially when we see results that are counterintuitive to what we believe, how we believe the economy should function. So we do really, the first question we ask when we're thinking about economic recovery and job creation is, are we creating good jobs? The Bay Area is an expensive place to live. We need to be creating jobs that allow families to sustain themselves and ideally to thrive in our region. And that hasn't been the case over the years. And, I'll use an example. A report was recently published in the Bay Area that was talking about the tech multiplier effect. And essentially what that is, it is an argument in favor of tech job creation because research has shown that for each tech job you create, it creates more than 4 other jobs indirectly in the local economy. And so on the surface, like a jobs report, that it seems like that might be telling us something about what economic policy we should be pursuing. But if you look under the hood of that information and you look at what types of jobs are being created indirectly in the local economy and also why those jobs are being created, it starts to tell a different story. So, that tech multiplier effect essentially happens because tech workers earn a lot of money relative to other workers in the economy. That extra money means that they have disposable income to spend. And the jobs that tend to be created through disposable income are service jobs. And as we know, it's not Bay Area specific. Service jobs tend to not be family sustaining jobs. And so further, if you think about who's actually getting those jobs and you look at the data, Latinx and Black workers are disproportionately represented in those low wage service jobs. So these are trends that have been happening in the Bay Area over a long period as a result of our focus on attracting and creating tech jobs.
And so when we talk about good jobs, which we often do at the National Fund, who has access to those good jobs?
Yeah, so we look at that in a couple of different ways. This concept of occupational segregation is something that we look at. So this is really understanding at a population demographic level who is getting different types of jobs in our economy. And this is where we typically see that people who look like me are most likely to be in tech jobs. And people who are immigrant workers, formerly incarcerated workers, women workers, they're more likely to be clustered in jobs that don't pay as well, don't have as good of benefits, and don't translate to as much economic power in our local economy.
One of the things that I noticed when I was in your neck of the woods last week, and I've been going to the Bay Area on and off for about 20 years, is just how unaffordable it was in terms of big changes in who's able to afford to live in the area. Can you talk a little bit about who can live in the Bay Area, and what do people need? What do they need to afford to be able to live and thrive?
Yeah, so we think about do we have enough good jobs? Do people have equitable access to those jobs? And then to your point, once somebody gets into a job, do they have access to the kinds of supports that all of us need to be successful at work and ultimately to build a career and to thrive? And these are things like access to affordable housing, commute times that are reasonable, that allow you to do things other than work and commute. Childcare is a huge barrier for particularly women in the Bay Area during the pandemic. It was an issue before, and it will be an issue after. So these are the sorts of things that don't necessarily feel like on the surface again, like worker issues or job issues, or sometimes even economy issues. But the reality is that these translate directly to individual workers and working families' ability to make ends meet. And so we can't have those conversations in silos. We need to be talking about how these issues intersect.
Yeah, well, just last month we were talking to our friends in Cleveland about the childcare issue, and it seems to be a pretty important issue across the board. So one of the things that you all did is you created a new data tool. Can you talk a little bit about your new data tool and what it means to you all?
Yeah, so our new tool is called the State of Bay Area Workers, and it's a tool that we developed in partnership with the National Equity Atlas and Policy Link. And essentially what it is an interactive tool that enables local policymakers and other leaders to dig in to a more nuanced understanding of the state of workers and working families in the Bay Area. The tool gives us information for our whole region in an aggregated sense, and then also you're able to look at individual counties within our region, because the Bay Area, everybody thinks about the tech sector. It also includes wine country, and there are a lot of farm workers who are struggling in wine country, especially with the wildfires and the other climate catastrophes that we've been experiencing in recent years. It's ideally a way to really, like, again, look under the hood and understand not just are we creating jobs at the highest level, but looking to see whether those jobs are good jobs and whether everyone has access to them.
And can you tell folks where they can find the tool if they're interested in checking it out?
Sure. So you can go to our website, reworkthebay.org. And if you go to the Our Work section, there is an option called State of the Bay Area Worker Data Tool. Definitely encourage you all to check it out. And we really see this as the foundation of a tool that we want to make stronger, because we recognize that the questions that people ask to understand these challenges and to develop policy solutions are probably questions that we may not see yet. And so please check it out and interact with it, and provide some feedback on where you'd like the questions you have and what data you'd like to see added.
Well, thank you so much, Rob, for joining me today. And thank you to all who are watching. And please join us next month when we will have our monthly State of the Workforce conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda.